and would not support any sort of quota that attempted to tie specific allotments to any particular race or gender.
The Jewish population of the U.S. is about 2%. One justice puts it 9% over. Am I correct?
I don't know the numbers, but I accept the principle of what you're saying.
Now, you also brought up National Football League. Where do you carry that diversity? For example, should a team's player makeup reflect the paying customers? So you can go, well, if you get into that, you can just carry this ad infinitum.
I think you raise a good point, and I certainly would not want my comments to be construed as suggesting that I think there should be any rigorous quotas, that any particular number of seats on any particular bench, or for that matter, position players on any NFL team, be reserved for anybody from any particular group. What I do think is important, though, is that as the makeup of the legal profession, practicing lawyers in the states around the country, becomes much more integrated in terms of women practicing, in terms of folks that represent different communities being represented within the legal profession, that states ought to make attempts to recruit some of those folks into the judiciary. Now, I don't think there should be hard and fast rules that if they don't find a woman today or a black lawyer tomorrow, that there should be any problem with that. But I do think that the public, when it sees a bench that is reflective of the nation and the diversity within the nation, may have more confidence that that is an institution that reflects the view within the country. And so I think that would be... I'm sorry?
Who would have the more confidence?
Well, I would submit that the community, the public as a whole, would have more confidence.
I can show you some egregious jury decisions which were based on race, right?
Well, I'm sure that's true. Yeah. Again, just to clarify the point of view that I have and that I think the Brennan Center as a whole has, I don't think anybody would come and say that particular seats on any particular court should be reserved for, allocated to, or exclusively given to anybody because of their race, because of their gender, or anything else. I do think, however, that when a state is 2 out of 10 people in a state are not white, when 40% of the people in a state are from minority communities, and when somewhere, I'm guessing around 50% of the state are women, to have a judiciary that is made up almost exclusively of white men leads to some questions among certain members of the public that may think that that shows a non-representative.
But in the current time, they're free to compete, just like the white men.
Well, I'm sure that's right.
Can I say one of the things which is slipping my mind now?
Well, if it comes back, I think you should certainly share it with us.
But we've heard about the 4, Scalia, Thomas, that. How about the other 5, Ginsburg, Breyer, that, Stevens? You can say things.
Well, that's when he said, "Is it the same 4?" And I said, "There are a couple of groups of 4." I was trying to respond to that.
Do you study diversity in prosecution offices too?
I'm sorry?
Diversity in prosecution offices. Do you study that at all?
I don't personally work on that end. The Brennan Center has looked at some of that, and there are some of my colleagues that are interested in that do study, for example, racial disparities within sentencing and within prosecutions. I think that's.
The prosecutions, yeah.
I don't know that there's been a whole lot of attention at the Brennan Center to that issue, though. I think it's an interesting one, and certainly to the extent we're looking at the sorts of prosecutions and sentences that are handed down, I think it would inform that discussion to see who is actually doing the prosecuting. But we have not been particularly involved in that. Sir, in the back?
Mr. Skaggs, I want to ask very quickly, the Sotomayor case where she, Massachusetts, would fire me?
In the New Haven.
Law to suit her own bias. How did she get around that? I don't understand. It should have been brought out in
New Haven. New Haven Fire Department.
Well, didn't that reflect on her integrity or her credentials?
Not at all.
Well, I take issue with a couple of the ways you characterized what she did in that case, and I would suggest that I don't know why she did what she did or what she was thinking. I do know what she said to explain her decision. And I do know that what she has said is that in that case, she attempted to apply existing Supreme Court precedent, which said if there's a risk that the city would be sued because of the black or other minority candidates that did not get promotions, they had an opportunity to choose another test. Now, she was joined by two other judges in a unanimous decision when they made that decision, and in fact, if you'll remember, 4 of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court said that existing precedent supported that decision. So again, it's the other group of 4 that came down the same way. But I would certainly suggest that whether you agree with the resolution of that case by the unanimous Second Circuit opinion or by the divided Supreme Court that revisited the issue and had an opportunity to throw out existing precedent and make their own law, what she did was certainly within the mainstream.
Your office support her at all?
I'm sorry?
Your center support her?
Well, our center has a policy, because we're a nonpartisan organization, that we don't actually endorse or oppose any particular candidate of any party nominated by any president. We did do a study of her jurisprudence, which was very quantitative. It was a very quantitative analysis. We looked at 2,000 cases that she had decided while on the Second Circuit, and all of the judges that were on the Second Circuit at the same time. And what that suggested was that she voted with a unanimous panel at a very high rate. She did not take radical stances outside what most of the other judges on the Second Circuit were doing, but we did not endorse or oppose her. Did you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask you, with the Brennan Center of Law, how do they acquire the information that goes into the report? I mean, to acquire the specific findings of the judiciary. Do you take it from the systematic viewpoint, or the way the judiciary affects the public at large? I mean, how does it work?
Well, I think it depends on sort of the project, and it depends on the study whatever the particular study is. We try to the best that we can to base any of the analysis or research that we do on hard data, on specific facts. So whether that means looking at the statistics that are generated by the court system itself, or in the case of looking at Justice Sotomayor's record, looking at 2,000 cases that we pulled up and analyzed each one. We also, though, complement that by conducting a lot of interviews. Like I talked about the diversity report. One of the things we did in the 10 states that report focused on was to interview judges in all of those states. And as you can imagine, there was a wide set of reactions to the situation in those states. Some thought the system was perfect, some thought the system was horrible, many people were somewhere in the middle. Some folks thought it was a situation that really needed changing. Many folks did not think there were significant changes that were made. So I think what we try and do is to survey the full breadth of opinion in the field and summarize that. And of course, we often come down with positions we think are important or are better than other positions, and we endorse those. But
you take the input from like the attorneys and the judges side, or on the side of like the litigants?
Well, I think I guess I'm not sure. It would depend on the issue we were talking about. I mean, I think if there were an issue where we could get, I think ideally we would want to get the viewpoints of everybody. Now, that may be easier to do in some cases than not. So I think if we were doing a study of satisfaction with the court system or something like that, we'd want to get the input of all of those groups that you just talked about, the litigants, the judges, the lawyers. As with anything, it's sometimes not possible to do things as you would hope every time. But that's the approach that we take. Sir, in the back. I know you remembered your question.
Constitution. I'm no expert, but I've read it.
Okay.
Nowhere in it is the word diversity. Nowhere in it is there any reference to religious, ethnic